Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm super excited to be presenting this webinar today. It's something that I'm really passionate about. My name's Heather, and in my work as a holistic practitioner and coach, I talk about nutrition a lot. It's a very core fundamental of my work. And this webinar particularly, we're going to expand into the multidimensional aspects of nutrition. And primarily, we're going to link what we eat and its nutritional value with how that impacts and influences our creativity. So, two areas of life that I very much enjoy, and I'll hope you will enjoy making those links with me today. Now, I'm going to share my screen, and we've got some slides to go through. And I hope that you'll understand by the end all the different links and all the multidimensional network of what nutrition can bring into our lives. Here we go. Okay, so we will be going through many different paradigms of thought through this talk, but we're just introducing it here as the eating plan for unlimited creativity, your nutritional path to limitless opportunities. In my experience, when I'm working with people, once the creativity starts to open and once they start to prioritize this area of their life, there is no limit to it. There is no way that it's going to run out as long as we keep our nutrition and our resources high. So follow along. Now, the first place I wanted to start was looking at the science behind creativity. So what are the researchers out there making links to? What are they talking about? And here I've made two studies available, and they are in the references if you want to read through them. They are linking what creativity means from a brain science point of view. And even the study down the bottom has had some links between the changes in the function of the hippocampus mainly, and what affects this area of the brain. And this has included aerobic fitness, excess adiposity, which is excess fat, and the diet. So they've even done some rodent studies where diets high in saturated fatty acids and sugar, which are the hallmarks of a Western diet, have been shown to negatively impact hippocampal function and thereby impair performance on cognitive tasks that require this area of the brain. So they are making these links. They are using measurable metrics to see what areas of the brain light up in creative people and what actually changes those networking patterns. So this is a really great place to start. What I have also noticed, and the link that I would make from a brain chemistry point of view, is when people can bring themselves out of the reptilian function of the brain, which is the survival function of the brain, we can move into these higher centers that are usually relating to complex problem solving and more visual experiences. It says up the top there, it's about creative imagery and conceptual expansion and overcoming knowledge constraints. So actually, when the wellness and the brain is functioning well and we're outside of that survival area, we can overcome any barriers around what we don't know. So this is really coming down to like creative problem solving, creative thought, which isn't just a fight and flight response. So getting people out of survival, out of constant fight and flight, out of constant stress is a really important part of these other areas of the brains lighting up and getting more developed and us using them more often. So it is very much a part of what habits and what areas of our lives need to be turned on so that we can use these other parts of our brain, and what habits need to be turned off. We can already see from that bottom study that fitness is important, diet is important, and even the level of fatty acids and sugar is important for creative thought and a sense of being in flow in our lives. All right, so let's move on. we are going to go into the energy centers as well, so that we can link creativity with this very ancient Ayurvedic system of the chakras. Most of you have probably heard of the chakras, and if you haven't, we're going to introduce them here a little bit, but very old ancient knowledge that is still alive today and still very relevant to so many modalities. So I myself call the sacral chakra, which is what we'll be focusing on, the fractal of creativity. Now, I've seen this energetically many times in people's bodies. This is the sacral area. This is the area that relates to the womb and the reproductive organs, and it's that lower part of the spine. It is the second energy center in the body. So once we move on from the root or the base chakra, which is a lot about survival, like we've talked about, it's also about family, it's about tribe. In our modern society, it is about money, because that does relate to a lot of our survival and our level of capacity to thrive. And when we move up into the sacral chakra, the fractal of creativity, we're really opening now into the fertility needed to have creative lives. So this area relates to how we can birth projects, and also how we birth babies, of course, and expressions into the world that are completely unique. So creativity is about either turning something old into something new or better, or it is creating something that never existed before. So creativity is about exploring the parameters of what is possible. It's about taking the conditions in our environment, taking what we have in our DNA, and using that to create and to alchemize something new, and to make something in the world that wasn't there before. That's how we birth babies. We take cells from two bodies and we conceive and create something that wasn't there before, and really needed the alchemy of those two DNA cells to come together. This center also relates to our reproductive health, our fertility, and the potency of our one-on-one relationship. There is a dimension of this chakra that lies in our sense of personal power, and particularly how that power relates to one-on-one relationships. So how are we actually relating to each other? The root or the base chakra, or the first chakra in the body, is more about community and groups. So who's around us, who's got our back, who supports us? You know, what do we have in the way of those resources? Do we have an extended family? Do we have abundance around us? Are we in an area that is so abundant with fresh food and nature and everything that we need? Or do we have less relationships around us, less abundance, and how we relate to that environment and that alchemy? But the sacral is really about finding that one-on-one connection. And let's just remember that fertility here isn't just about a biological sense of our potential to create life. It's also about the way that we fertilize everything in our lives. Do we bring energy and nourishment to our projects, to our family, to our career? It relates to our capacity for that, how much we have to give within and outside of us too. So as always, this area can relate to different themes at different times for all of you. But right now we're going to hone in on, if I wanted to support my own creativity or nourish someone else's creativity, I would be looking at all of the themes in this area. I would be looking at their reproductive health. I'd be looking at their one-on-one relationships. You know, what level of capacity do they have to fertilize their one-on-one relationships? Do they have anything to give? Is this center open? And also, do they feel like they have the capacity in their lives to creative problem solve, to think around barriers? Or are they just hitting the same barriers and creating stress in fight and flight? Yeah. So thinking about all those concepts as we move on. Now, let's look into a Chinese medicine view of how we see creativity, and then we'll go into some dietary aspects as well. So Chinese medicine talks about the free flow of qi and blood in the body relating to a sense of ease and creativity. When qi becomes blocked or stagnant, We will not have the capacity for creative thought, a clear mind, or good memory. Our habits and daily lives will show if we are promoting a free flow of qi or if allowing blockages to occur. So the way we eat and what we eat have a big influence on the body's capacity to make qi and help it circulate. So here we have some other ideas around, from a Chinese medicine perspective, again, another ancient medicinal paradigm. They're talking about creativity being a natural state when we're in flow and ease. Now, this is a bit more about the energetics in our body and how they're circulating. So are we moving qi or vital force or energy around our body easily? Is the blood circulating well? Is it oxygenating well? All of these paradigms come into play, and we start to think about, okay, well, what does make me feel at ease in my life? And am I actually using what I put in my body well? Am I eating the right foods in the right way so that my body has enough ease to absorb all the nutrients, to make qi, to circulate the qi? This brings us into a more holistic paradigm as well. In the bottom there, I've put, according to Chinese medicine principles, eating according to the season is very important too, so we can live in harmony with the natural world. This also brings us into the paradigm of our environment and how we're relating to our environment. It might even suggest that ease and creativity come when we're in alignment with our environment, alignment with what nature's telling us outside. So is it spring outside? Therefore, we have a lot of energy and a lot of color and a lot of newness coming out. Or is it winter outside, where we might be hibernating or going inward or becoming a bit more introvert? And how we link that with diet is really, really important too. So it might bring us this extra understanding around our body is doing a service to us by making qi and vital force from our food, from oxygen in the air, and from nourishment in our lives. And if that qi can move around with ease and it can circulate, then perhaps our natural state of flow is a creative state of flow. And maybe all these blockages and the ways that we go against our environment or we go against this natural flow is what we can focus on to make sure that we're always in that sense of creative thought, having a good memory, a clear mind, the ability to see our lives clearly, the ability to understand the events that we go through, the space to think not only creatively, but have an imagination around what we might want to do with our lives. All of these for us relate to easily circulating qi, oxygenated blood, and a sense of ease in the nervous system. So the nervous system does come into play here. A nervous system that is exhausted, burnt out, and in chronic stress is not expected to have these higher centers activated. So maybe there's a component here about when the qi is flowing well, we also will be relaxed and calm, not stressed, anxious, depressed, and all those states that are becoming quite common. Okay, so let's look at the actual foods that promote a free flow of qi. I'll go through the list and we'll just discuss some of these concepts, making sure you know exactly what we mean by what's on the list. And it might be a good idea to go back over the webinar, screenshot this list or write it down. And then think about it when you're out shopping, think about it when you're at the markets, and understand what is available in your area, where these foods haven't been incorporated in your life, or maybe something that you need to go over and research a little bit about why they're important and go further into that. So we have up the top organic and nutrient-dense fruit and vegetables. Now, the reason why organic is fairly important at the moment is because a lot of our soils, particularly here in Australia, have been over-farmed. They have had monocropping going on, which means they plant the one plant in the soil over and over again. which means the soil becomes depleted, particularly in the nutrients that one plant needs so much. With biodiverse farming, it means that they are alternating crops, they are companion planting, which means one plant might draw out certain nutrients, and they're very clever to know what the next crop might be, which might put that back into the soil. Because just like human beings, plants also interact with the soil. They need some nutrients at certain times of growing. They can put other nutrients back in the soil as well. So nutrient dense is also about being fairly fresh, how rich the soils are, how suited the crop is to the environment. Now, obviously, there's environmental factors that are outside of our control, whether we're going through drought or floods, or that's really Mother Earth talking to us about what crops are going to be grown this year, what crops may have had too much influence, and what fruits and vegetables are available in our environment. Now, there's a concept as well around the soils close to where we live are generally rich in the microbes that our systems need to digest well. As herbalists, we also say that the herbs that naturally grow in your environments are the ones that our systems need the most. So whatever ailment we have, there is an antidote in nature, and we can watch what grows well in our local area. That could be the herbs that grow well, the fruit and vegetables that thrive. And then there's obviously things that you put in the soil that don't thrive so well. They don't suit the soils, they don't suit the conditions, or perhaps this season it's not a good fit. So if this season isn't a good fit, then we might look at how is Mother Nature talking to us about what our bodies need. Okay, moving on. Organically grown whole grains that contain rich fiber and high density nutrition. They also represent a lower GI. So we are looking at organic again here because particularly the grains that have been developed and changed for monocropping and really dense farms that can turn over a lot of food in 1 year. A lot of them have been adapted so they can be sprayed easily and tolerate the spraying. Now, pesticides, we already know can have a pretty big impact on our systems. So if we go the organic route, we know at least that people are aware that spraying can't be included in that. Now, it doesn't mean that it's biodynamic farming. It doesn't mean that they're doing all those other things, but at least we're one step closer to finding a crop or a product that has had a little bit more of nature's medicine in it. It's not always super important to go organic, but as I said, it's a good step in the right direction, and see what you can find in your local area. I would recommend whole grains because in that outside husk of a whole grain is rich fiber content. Now, we need the husk on the grain. There's a lot of nutrients in that husk. It's difficult for the body to process the husk, which means it can have levels of fiber, and it lowers the GI, which means the rate that the body releases the glucose inside, this is the glycemic index, means that we can delay the sugar spike that will happen from those grains. So this is pretty important. High blood sugar is really dangerous for our bodies. That's why the pancreas comes in and shoots out insulin pretty quickly. If our body gets tired of bringing blood sugars down too often, insulin gets worn out, the pancreas gets worn out, and we head towards diabetes, which is a bit of an epidemic at the moment, particularly in Western cultures. So when we go for a whole grain, we are processing those outside husks, which gives us the fiber and makes bulk to the stool. If the stool has bulk, it will transit through at a more optimum time, sweeping the walls of the intestines and also slowly absorbing nutrients out of that stool. So it gives your body an opportunity to extract water, to extract dense nutrients, vitamin, minerals, and things. When we don't have that fiber, and let's say we go for refined carbs, which is anything from white bread to biscuits to pasta, whatever, your body can quickly absorb, breaks down very quickly. Glucose goes into your system very quickly, and we have the blood sugar spike. Now, this means you usually feel pretty good. Then you do get a bit of a rush, a dopamine rush, a blood sugar rush, but then your body has to come in, lower the blood sugars, insulin gets brought out, and sometimes the insulin brings us down below what our blood sugars were before we ate that product, which means then we can often get tired. So if you've ever had like a carbohydrate hangover, it's usually because of the refined nature of the grain and that the grain has been highly processed. Having said that, if you have a weak digestion, whole grains are going to be harder to digest. So we're looking at the ideal here. We're looking at updating our knowledge around it. We're also respecting that everybody is different, and please honor what your body is telling you. If it has a reaction to dense whole grains, then we might look at finding a slightly more refined version. We would go organic. We would support your system to make sure that you're getting everything else in that meal and making sure that the blood sugars don't spike too quickly, and making your way towards a whole grain alternative eventually. So sometimes that's possible. Legumes, I love. I think they're great. They're high in fiber, high in protein, mineral, nutrient dense. Certainly sprouted legumes are more beneficial, but again, incorporating these things into your diet, allowing your body to signal to you if they are working well. And then, looking up the nutritional value, looking up what they provide for your body, looking up how much protein's in one serve. All of this information can really help you to make good decisions. But legumes are peas, chickpeas, lentils, and beans. Awesome in the diet. Most people can't go too far into them because it usually promotes wind, but often that is putting a whole bunch of fiber in that hasn't been there. So when you start to go organic, whole grain, bringing in sprouted legumes, this sort of thing, the body can go into a slight bit of shock, and that's okay. Just introduce food slowly and monitor what is going on. It doesn't often mean that it's bad. It means that your body's not used to it. So always watch your symptoms there. Nuts and seeds are an absolute powerhouse of nutrition. Very nutrient dense. If you think about nuts and seeds, they often have everything they need in them for a whole plant to grow. One seed can be a 20-meter high tree. So think about the density of nutrition that needs to be in there. Very important parts of our diet. Certainly go with what your body wants. If you need to soak them, if you need to roast them, go with what you can handle. You can even blitz them up and sneak them into your kids' food, stuff like that. Herbal teas and herbal medicines, I'm a huge advocate for. There are specific herbal teas and medicines out there that will move the chi. So particularly for people, if we're working with people that don't even have the energy to exercise properly, which would obviously be a really important way of moving chi, then we would go with herbal tonics and medicine that help to move the chi until they have the energy to move their bodies properly. And if you think about people that may have broken their back or have a leg injury or something like that, sometimes we have to work around those issues. So keeping the chi moving for those that can't easily move is an excellent way to do it. Herbal teas are excellent in the diet, very accessible. All of them have their own qualities and are all doing important functions in the body. So really important to get into that. Free-range eggs, particularly from farms that are close by, particularly from happy chickens that are fed good seasonal produce, that can graze in the open fields, can eat what they want to eat, that are healthy looking, really power packed with nutrients, incredible nutrient profile in eggs, huge amounts of protein, huge amounts of vitamin D, so rich in so many beautiful things that our bodies can use so efficiently. So particularly if they're in your own backyard and you love them, these chickens, then that would be ideal. Connection to nature, connection to our food. And what happens through those chickens is also a reflection of what's happening within you. So it's like our nutrients around us and our crops and our beautiful animals are also speaking as reflections about what's going on. If they're not laying eggs and they're in your backyard, we could start to think about, well, if they're not super fertile, what's happening in that environment and what's happening around us? And do they need some time to be away from the egg laying? And do we need a break from that set of nutrition? So thinking about it multidimensionally all the time. We have fresh raw dairy from a local farm. Dairy can create some problems in some bodies, no doubt, but fresh and raw dairy is not highly processed. It's not heat treated. And if you can get it from a local farm where you can see the cows and they're outside and they've got green grass and they're happy and they're loved by their farmers, this is also a nutrient powerhouse. Dairy is super dense if you think about that it is the milk for a baby cow. The only problem is a baby cow has 4 stomachs. We only have 1. So I've always said that dairy isn't something that's ideal every meal or even every day. It's something designed for an animal much bigger than us. So having it there in those fresh, raw forms is incredible. But I don't think every meal, every day, I think that's a little bit overkill. And I think that's why our bodies start to reject it and it starts to create inflammation. Organic wild-caught meat and seafood, again, a powerhouse. If we had really good sources of meat and seafood, I think we could be eating less of it. Now, I have always advocated for a balanced diet according to what your system needs. 100%. If you don't know what your system needs, then great idea to go ahead and test your blood and work with a naturopath to see how you're extracting nutrients in your body and what's kept in balance for you and what seems to be deficient. So someone that might be deficient in zinc or iron or a lot of those B vitamins that come in meat might want to go on a higher meat diet. And someone that doesn't have a problem with any of those nutrients in the blood might be able to get away with a vegetarian diet. So, and we're in different phases in our life. Having a think about what you're in alignment with at the moment is really important. And we now have much better sources of organic wild-caught meat and seafood, and researching what types of meat are easier to find in that wild-caught nature and what seafood do we have access to. And it depends on your area too. If you're close to the water, you might have friends and local fishermen catching most days. And again, what's in your environment will signal to you about the nutrients and the microbes that you need in that environment to take that environment. If you're inland and you're not close to the water, but you have access to really high quality grade meat or beef or whatever it is, then that might be a good option for you too. And as close to the farm as we can get. Obviously, this is doesn't need to be perfect, but these foods promote qi because they still have qi in them. They have good blood and that animal lived well. And you can feel the nourishment when there is high qi. So even with the herbal teas, if it's a fresh herb that's then dried properly, that was in dense soils and in an environment where it thrived and it was a good season, this is going to have such potency. Even, I believe, down to the way it's packaged and how enthusiastic and passionate those people are that package it. And if they care about their product and if they care about the world, and, you know, are they switched on to knowing that a crop is only good for that certain environment at certain times of years and not over farming the soil so that their product's integrity remains high. these can all co-factor in. So eating food grown in your own garden creates a strong bond between work, so the work you have to do in that garden, and that brings you purpose. And it's a strong link with your health too. So making those bonds. I've always known that the fisherman that goes out and catches a fish and brings it home to the family can talk about their day, can talk about the conditions out there. And there may have even been a fairly strong bond with that fish. Maybe there's a sense of mutual respect there. And I think that's always spoken really loudly, even when there's a sense of gratitude and ceremony around these sacrifices that these beautiful animals make for our nutrition. This can all bring us in relationship. So do our gardens outside, tending to your own garden, nourishing your own garden, speaking to your own garden and letting it speak to you about your health and what you need. And remember, those crops that go really well in a certain season, that might indicate that we really need those nutrients as well. So I've just mentioned fish and seafood you've caught yourself, giving thanks for the sacrifice, fresh meat that is sourced from a small farm close to you, foods prepared with love, usually by someone, yourself or someone who cares about you. Really important. We put our energy into our food, and that energy translates as chi. So if someone you love is cooking for you, or if you're cooking for someone you love, you're putting your chi into the food. You're doing it with intention, and that intention flows into our body too, as like a frequency match. I can always feel the difference between food that's made by a chef who loves what they do and prepares with passion and is sourcing products from places that they believe in. Now, remember that all of these things, when you're out and about eating, you can gauge that from restaurants that are presented well, that want to really let you know where their products have come from. Maybe you can see how well the team works together and how much intention's been put in. And of course, there's a different price point for these things, but this is a way that we can intentionally support other people's creativity, and they can support our nourishment as well. So we can create a new world here in this way, which is really, really potent. And the last point is foods grown by farmers who value biodiversity and healthy soils. So there might be farmers that simply go organic because there's a different price point, but there also might be farmers who are really passionate about biodiversity and healthy soils and wanting to be part of the innovation of that and wanting that to be well known to their customers and their clients. Seeking out those farms and supporting them is a really nice way of feeling in contact with the right part of our nutrition, and also feeling closer to creative people, and creative farming too is really important. Hey, lovelies, if you're resonating with this content, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, helps out the channel, helps us to make beautiful content for you all. Don't forget to comment down below too if you want to share your experiences, ask us a question, and send in some requests. We'd love to know what you want more videos about. Once again, thank you for watching, and we love you all so much. Okay, moving on. So we're now looking at a list of foods that might disrupt the free flow of chi. Now, there's probably nothing on this list that you haven't seen before, but I just wanted to catch it from this new perspective. And this is primarily from Chinese medicine. The organ or the energetic system involved with free flow of chi is primarily the liver. Now, what we know about our liver is it detoxes the blood, and it does that at a highly efficient rate. Depending on how well your blood is circulating, the liver can really detox the blood every 3 minutes, depending on our heart rate and depending on its efficiency. So we're looking at foods and substances here that slow down that rate and add extra load. So the liver has to constantly be detoxing. We don't want to add too much load, but the liver is there so it can detox. So some of the things on this list you can handle, and some your body will start to scream at you after a while and say, that's too much now. Now, we say in Chinese medicine, everything in moderation, so that the liver can work and do its job and detox out what doesn't serve you. But we don't want to add too many components on top so that the liver gets sluggish, the qi blocks, and then we're likely to go into symptoms, illnesses, disease processes that are about blockages. So that is anything from digestive symptoms like reflux, indigestion, constipation, to full-blown diseases. For us in a holistic paradigm and primarily Chinese medicine, we would see big diseases and illnesses as simply a blockage of qi, which we call stagnation. So stagnation could be melancholy, depression, anxiety, cancer and tumors, autoimmune. It really comes down to where that energy is stuck. And it's stuck because we're either not moving our bodies well, we're not out in nature enough, we're not eating the right foods. And I think the paradox is nice that we can sort of evaluate modern society around, well, I'm not out there moving in nature in this part of my life. I might have a chapter where I'm inside more, or I'm working in an office, and that's okay. How can I support my body through what might cause stagnation? And then the times that we're outside, we're moving heaps, we're connected to nature, we're engaged, we're creative, we're around community, we can probably be a little bit more relaxed about these foods and substances. So that can be a nice way to think about what moderation is and what the multidimensional approach to these foods and substances are. So on the list, we have alcohol. We know that that can be a tool. We know it can also be a burden. We know it can set up addiction. It does move the qi, actually. In the beginning, it moves qi very well. But the problem with this and a lot of other things on the list is because the body then needs to detox that alcohol out, the next time it needs movement, the qi might stagnate more. So it's not a hugely sustainable way to move qi, but it will certainly pick up the circulation in the beginning. And I just wanted to be clear on that. So have a look at the moderation in your life. And if you can moderate, now alcohol does hit the system. It does spike the blood sugars. It is fairly heavy for the liver to detox, but we're looking at what else is in the diet, what else is in the body. And obviously the multidimensional approach would have, do we need the alcohol to go into a creative thought pattern? And if so, we could identify stagnation as the blockage towards the creativity in the first place. So it's a temporary free flow of qi and a little bit of a deceiving one. That's all I'll say. But certainly go for the highest quality alcohol you can. Drink in moderation, drink around good people, be thankful for the tool, for the potent medicine that it can be, and stay on top of how much your body can process. I think scientifically they say around 7 standard drinks a week is the limit that your liver can take to detox out. So if that's all in one go, you're going to feel pretty shit the next day. If it's one a day and that suits your lifestyle, that might be your moderation. If your body does not work well with alcohol, and you'll know, you might get a headache, you might get flushed in the face, you might feel woozy, it might turn your behavioral characteristics into something that is not ideal, that doesn't relate to connection. Have a look at all of those things, and if that tool is serving you, and remember to take breaks because it is potent stuff. Artificial sugar will definitely add load to the liver. There is no nutritional value in artificial sugar. It will spike your blood sugars. Most of it is processed from the cane sugar plant to the point where there is no nutritional benefit at all. It is just straight sugar. And the cane sugar plant itself draws a huge amount of nutrients out of the soil, and there's not a lot of crop rotation going on. So I don't think we need artificial sugar in our lives. There are so many naturally, beautifully sweet things in our diet that we could go for. Cane sugar straight from the plant has huge amounts of nutrition. Molasses does too, which is made from the cane sugar plant. Don't worry about brown sugar. It is just a dyed version of artificial sugar. But naturally sweet things like honey and agave syrup and maple syrup, they're all really nutrient dense. In little amounts, they won't have the same toxic effect because there's cofactors in there. There's holistic nutrition in there when they're not processed too much. Honey is an absolute powerhouse when you can get it untreated, when you can get it fairly fresh, and particularly from the bees in your area. They will be pollinating the plants in your area. So it's even known that honey is a herbal medicine for those that experience sinus problems and hay fever, because we're reacting to the pollen in the area, and it's exactly the same pollen that the bees are gathering from. So they're providing you the antidote. It's really, really cool. Gluten is a protein found from the wheat plant. As I said before, gluten itself is not harmful, but we have a lot of wheat in our diet, particularly here in Australia. The wheat plant has been modified over time to be more resilient to conditions and more resilient to spraying. And what happens then is the cofactors that would have made it easier for our body to process the gluten are being reduced, and the gluten is becoming more defined or more overpowering, making it inflammatory for our system. Gluten comes from the word glue. So it actually coats the digestive tract, making it hard for nutrients to pass through the walls easily. And it sticks there like glue, can create a lot of dampness and stagnation and inflammation in the body, create a lot of problems. So you don't actually know if you're intolerant to gluten until you start testing, but you can also take it out of your diet to see if your brain changes. So I've noticed when people take it out, it takes a few weeks. They say up to 6 weeks is ideal for it all to come out of your system. But if you get a change in your cognitive behavior, maybe brain fog turns into clarity, then you know that that food is now inhibiting that. And it is about moderation. A lot of us have grown up with heavy gluten diets, heavy sugar diets, which means gluten may be a part of every meal. It is far too much on the system. It will overload the liver. So again, if your body is fairly tolerant of it, go as a good of a crop as you can find, organic, whole grain, grown well in good soils. That will help you out. We've put on the list pasteurized and processed dairy products. Again, unhappy cows, highly treated milk, stripped of the natural cofactors that help those fairly potent molecules in dairy to be processed. So the biggest parts about problems with dairy is the lactose, which is the sugar component, and the casein, which is a protein component. They are inflammatory in nature. Again, when it's raw, coming from happy cows, which have a lot of chi, all those cofactors will be in there. So your body can process it well. What we need for those big components, even if it's alcohol, your body needs B vitamins to get it out of the system efficiently, for all the electrics in your body to work well. We need electrolytes and all of those cofactors in there so we can detox well, and we can take the parts that we want and discard the rest. And that's what the body does well. But if these things are slowing down and they're becoming more inflammatory, the body struggles to create that sorting process, which it needs a lot of chi for. So it starts to get sluggish, it starts to leak, it starts to do that inefficiently. Foods pass through and disrupt all sorts of processes. Caffeine's on the list. Everybody relates or processes caffeine differently. Some people don't even have the enzymes to do so. So they will be highly affected, which means one bit of caffeine can keep them up for hours and hours. The half-life of caffeine is probably about 6 hours. So it does stay in your system for a long time. It does ignite the nervous system. You get a heightened response. Now, remember, that response doesn't come from nowhere. It will switch on things in your body. Just be aware of if that is switching on the right things, and if you have the capacity for that little bit of oomph, or caffeine sort of increases the rate that our cells do their job, the way that they detox, the way that they take on nutrients, the way that they multiply. So I've heard a paradigm of thought that I quite like, is that Caffeine speeds you up. It speeds up your pace. Now, if you think about speeding up, that is the aging process that happens naturally. So caffeine can make you age quicker if we're not supporting the body. So if you love your caffeine and it works for you, and tea or coffee is a plant ally and you've been loving it in your life, support your system through it. Give it the nourishment it needs to have that extra energy in your life. So processed food like refined carbohydrates, we have talked about. Smoked meats, usually high in nitrates. Nitrates are fairly damaging for the body as well. Again, moderation. Hidden nitrates once every few months might not be a problem, but every day we're looking at a compounding interest on what your body has to do to get it out. Anything that comes in a packet. So we're talking about here about a low processed diet, because the more you have to sort it out, get it out, detox it out, the more sluggish the chi becomes, the more load on the liver. And it basically means that your body will be consumed by getting those components out of the system rather than maintaining cells and repairing muscles and making immune cells and, nourishing the bone, all of these important things that the body needs capacity for. But if we're hitting it with things that overloads it all the time, it's really just working on that. And that can be stress too. Nicotine, again, will have a deceiving action on the body. It will move chi primarily, but then the chi stagnates more easily. So then you want the nicotine again. Tobacco has always been used as a plant ally. We have a beautiful relationship with it in certain paradigms of thought. Nicotine heightens our senses very quickly, but I believe that it takes us into the moment, but then further away. Again, it's providing a tool for us, but all tools eventually need to be weaned out so that we can have that within ourselves. So how do we stay more present would be one of the lessons that tobacco provides for us or questions us towards. MSG can be very toxic for the body. It's a flavor enhancer. It's used a lot in Asian cooking. It can have drastically toxic effects at high doses. Again, let's not try and be perfect, but we don't want MSG every day. We don't want it in every meal. And listen to your body's sensitivities around it. I know people that could not have it, even 1 gram of it. Others doesn't seem to affect them. And like I say with most things, if there's a lack of moderation for anything on this list, you're likely to go into an intolerance. So let's say right now you don't have an intolerance to MSG, but if you ate it every meal, every day, you're probably looking at setting yourself up for what might be a very adverse reaction in the future, and maybe something that you won't be able to process. So that moderation is key. Pharmaceutical drugs like the birth control pill, painkillers, medications, and antibiotics, they do disrupt the flow of chi. They can drastically change the microbiome. They can override hormones. They can override your body's natural signaling system, which is the biggest problem. So if your body is in pain, it's trying to signal to you an area that's inflamed or out of balance, or it's really trying to talk to you there. Medications can do wonderful things like bring down blood pressure and quite dangerous situations. But we would say in holistic medicine that those patterns have been there for a long time and can be treated with diet and lifestyle naturally. Medications are then adding extra toll on the liver. So it's just one more thing that the liver has to do for that day. I'm not anti-medication at all. I think there's a big purpose for them, but knowing when your body is signaling imbalance to you is really important. Birth control pill, again, it's overriding a hormonal imbalance. The imbalance is there as a signal system. It can be treated with diet, lifestyle, healing, nutrition, herbal medicines. But a lot of this stuff is all consuming. It represents a lot of change in our lives. But as holistic practitioners, we always promote natural first. And we do everything we possibly can before we choose medication. And if medication is there and is necessary, sometimes antibiotics save our lives, and that's okay. We then support the system to detox out well and all of those systems we need. Yep. And at the bottom of the list, fruits and vegetables that are heavily sprayed with pesticides. So again, shopping all organic is very expensive at the moment, but check out the Dirty Dozen. They're the most sprayed fruit and vegetables. They can be the ones to prioritize first to go organic with. It's never perfect, but it's a good place to start. And when money's tight, just go with the Dirty Dozen, or simply look around to see what you can find in bulk or cheap in your local area. Whoops. So moving on, I get asked a lot about, what literally needs to be on my plate. I know there's a lot of diets around now, ketogenic and carnivore and paleo and all these things. I've always said that a sustainable, balanced diet is probably the best way to go. If your diet right now isn't sustainable for your whole life, then it's probably going to have a low compliance level, which means you're going to be really excited about it in the beginning, but it's going to get harder and harder. And then you might revert back to a diet that was even worse. So that yo-yoing isn't great. I'm all for detoxing and particularly detoxing in spring, but yo-yoing around into something that's like close to perfect and then coming out into something that's quite processed and risky probably doesn't work so well. So here's my take on it. 65% of your plate can be carbohydrate content. I don't have a problem with carbohydrates as long as they're from the right source. So ideally, if you wanted to really give yourself a health kick, make that 65% vegetables, fresh vegetables. Doesn't matter if they're cooked or raw, maybe a combination of, depending on how strong your digestive system is and what season it is outside. So raw would be better for summer, and cooked would be better for winter. There can be a bit of fruit in there. Whole grains is really important. Like we've talked about, legumes can be part of your carbohydrate content. So having more than half the plate as a refined processed carb is not ideal. That's pasta, that's hot chips, that's white rice, all these things that are so common in our society. Let's switch them up for vegetables. And you'll find that your body has what it needs, and like so much fiber content and so many dense vitamins and minerals, it will process all of that so much better. We do need adequate protein in our lives. 25% is ideal for me. We need complete protein. So if you're doing vegetarian or vegan, you can combine your protein sources to get all amino acids. Otherwise, we do prioritize complete protein sources. That means all the building blocks are in there so that you can make muscle fibers, neurotransmitters, hormones. These are all actually proteins, and we need protein. Otherwise, we can't make those beautiful cells, and we'll see a decline in our health. So meat, seafood, dairy, eggs, tofu, and tempeh are all complete proteins. You can mix and match. You can get quite a lot of amino acids with whole grains if you mix them with legumes. Possibly if you put some more nuts and seeds on your plate, that will give you some incomplete protein, but will complement what else is on your plate too. Saturated, polyunsaturated, unsaturated fats, it's a big conversation. What I hope for is 10% of my meal is good sources of fat. I keep it simple. If I can do it with olive oil, coconut oil, something like avocado, or butter or ghee or lard, then that's my choice. Polyunsaturated oils are not great for the body in any way, I've decided. So polyunsaturated oils are your palm oils and your canola oils and your sunflower oils. I just stay away from those. I know there's different paradigms of thought, but a good quality olive oil drizzled on my vegetables, or coconut oil to cook my meats and eggs and things, is great. If I feel I need more good fats, I'll bring out the avocados. Now, depending on where you live, I live in an avocado dense area, so that is my go-to for fats. That's what my environment signals to me in the avocado season, which is quite long, so pretty ideal. So what can we actually incorporate into our daily lives? What are the habits we need to keep chi free flowing, to keep the areas of our brain lighting up and easily accessed, to keep away from, all those things that might block the chi. Let's have a look. We do ask for 5 to 7 cups of vegetables per day. This will provide the fiber and the glucose we need in excellent sources to sustain creativity. So 5 to 7 cups means whatever you got on your plate, or whenever you're chopping up your vegetables, or if it fits into a measuring cup, that's 1 cup. If you've got a big salad one day that literally has 7 cups of vegetables in it, then you're probably done for the day, and that's awesome. But making sure that there's a cup or 2 in every meal of the day, and getting creative with how you can use those vegetables. So most people are substituting rice for cauliflower now, or we can do zucchini noodles instead of pasta. We can do sweet potato chips instead of white potato chips. And that only has benefit because white potatoes are fairly high in carbohydrate content. They are nutritious, but the nutrition is low compared to sweet potato and yam and all those things. So they can spike the blood sugars a little bit. We just say everything in moderation. So making sure each meal has a variety. Adequate protein to provide the building blocks for muscle, hormones, neurotransmitters, and immune cells. So this part's really important. We need protein in every single meal. It starts to help you to understand that having something packaged or processed and calling that a meal is just not going to cut it. Some of my things that I've gone on about over the years is, a packet of chips isn't a meal. We don't have enough vegetable content. We don't have adequate protein. We don't have variety. A coffee is not a meal. It doesn't have all of these things that we need in it. And we're substituting so many of these things so often. And some people say, well, it's totally fine. Like I had a chocolate bar, but I didn't eat. It's not adequate nourishment. It's actually more detrimental to your blood sugars and your system to substitute a meal with something that's going to spike the blood sugars. So if you're needing your chocolate, go as high quality as you can and have it after a decent meal that is balanced. If you've got that sweet tooth at the moment, then incorporate it into a healthy diet. And we'll keep on going over that. Good sources of fats to keep our system nourished and protected against oxidative stress. Fats will also keep you full and satisfied in your meals. So if you walk away unsatisfied from a meal and your body is still looking for something, we could probably say that that meal didn't have what your body needed. Fats will help you feel full. Protein will also help you feel satisfied. Sometimes when there's not enough protein in the meal, you'll crave sweetness after the meal. So have a think about that. And if that happens often, and go ahead and have a healthy dessert after your meal. It's better than substituting a meal with something packaged and processed that your body then has to get out as quickly as possible. So regular meal times, really important so that our metabolism provides an efficient running time. This includes aiming for 2 to 3 easy bowel movements every day and drinking 1 to 3 liters of good water each day. This helps the metabolism. It works like a machine. It loves consistency. The metabolism needs to be functioning at a high rate all the time. So when we're skipping meals and we're inconsistent and we're fasting here, but we're not over there, that metabolism slows down and then it gets overloaded. So fasting for a long period of time slows down the metabolism, and then putting a huge meal on top slows it down, makes it sluggish, and then it has to find a new equilibrium. Drinking water actually keeps metabolism high. It keeps the system running. So making sure you have good filtered water each day will help the metabolism, will help your level of hydration. And we really want those 2 to 3 easy bowel movements every day. And that is a lot to do with fiber, consistency, movement, but really about the chi moving well all the time. Yeah. So enough movement to keep our energy centers open and flourishing. Aim for 30 minutes of high intensity or 60 minutes of lower intensity as a minimum. So again, work with your lifestyle and what you got going on at the moment. Moving your body will facilitate fresh energy and circulation to your body's cells and will provide oxygen to the brain. If you reach a creative block, get moving and notice how it clears. So depending on your lifestyle at the moment, if you were sitting down for your work and you had a sedentary lifestyle, you might want to go for more than that minimum. You might want to go for a little bit longer. You might want to split it up as well around your oversitting times. If you have a high intensity job that's very physical, you might not need extra movement on top, but you might want to add stretching, relaxation exercises, breath work, something that, again, nourishes the cells, the body, the muscles, the ligaments, and all those things from that strenuous work. Yeah. So work with what you've got at the moment. Some other tips for nutritional wellness. Try to finish each meal when you're 80% full. We don't want to overload the metabolism. We don't want to cram too much in one go. We really want that consistency, and we don't need the body to be lethargic when it's digesting. It's a sign that we've probably overloaded the system or that the digestion is too weak. So if you leave each meal slightly hungry, that's perfect. That's what we want. And your body will get used to just having enough to go through. Yeah. If you are choosing to fast, then please get support from a naturopath and skip dinner instead of breakfast. So breakfast sets you up for your blood sugar levels for the entire day. It's an excellent time to hit a peak of nutrition. And we're usually going out to do our work for the day after breakfast. So you really need the nutrients in there first. If you're not hungry around breakfast time or in the morning, you're probably relying on stress hormones, cortisol, to get you through the day. We need to retrain the appetite around being hungry at the peak time so that you have enough nutrients to last you through to lunch. Yeah. So caffeine is best taken 1 hour after your first meal. I don't generally recommend caffeine on an empty stomach. I don't recommend it as a meal. After you've digested your breakfast, probably optimum time mid-morning. And then if you needed it again in the afternoon, mid-afternoon. And if you want to support your body, you could also have it with a snack that's high in protein and fat, just so it gives you the fuel for that caffeine to use. Otherwise, it will find the fuel from your cells. And if you're not providing the nutrients for your cells in the first place, it will still take what it needs. So it will start to leach out nutrients from the cells, from the muscle, from the bone, because it needs to create that experience. So we need to support our system with these tools. Warm and cooked foods are easy to digest since they are close to the body's temperature. So anything that hits the stomach that is below room temperature or the temperature of our bodies actually stays in the stomach until it comes up to the body's temperature before it can go through the next sphincter and into the small intestine. So it will sit there. So cold drinks, ice creams, anything straight out of the fridge, cold salads actually sit in the stomach until they're warmed up. It's giving the stomach an extra job to do. So particularly in Chinese medicine, we always say at least room temperature, warm is best, so that your body can just get on to digesting it, moving it through, absorbing the nutrients, doing its job. Eat the rainbow. So this is a really nice idea around getting the diversity in our food and the complex mix of vitamins and minerals that we need. Eat the rainbow. So we need an array of different colored foods to reach adequate amounts of vitamins and minerals daily. If you can't find enough colored fruits and vegetables, you might need to supplement with colloidal minerals, electrolytes, and extra magnesium. This is a beautiful way to stay on top of that connection with nature, that connection to our energy centers. If you're really wanting to boost your creativity, we would go with orange foods because they relate to the sacral chakra. So your pumpkins and your sweet potatoes and your papayas, all beautiful sources in that rainbow idea. Be mindful of overly beige diets, overly beige foods. You can see there that there is not a high nutrient content. So they're all your refined carbs usually. And if all we're eating is deep fried refined carbs and everything in that area, Notice that there's not enough rainbow in there. So eat the rainbow. It will protect all of your energy systems. You can also add warming herbs to each meal to aid digestion, like black pepper, cinnamon, turmeric, garlic, and ginger, according to if your body digests them well. But what they actually do is they warm everything up so that more circulation heads to your stomach and heads to your intestines. So it's more efficient and it's easier to start extracting. So remember, we talked about cold foods and just sitting there. That coldness also isn't circulation promoting. So it's actually sending the blood into different areas. We need that warming. Black pepper has even been studied that it helps and collaborates with extracting nutrients out of your food. It adds digestive fire to your meal. So it's just a wonderful thing to add in. Okay, let's look at a multidimensional guide to creativity, what we can do sort of from a daily perspective. And this multidimensional guide includes sitting in silence every day to allow new ideas to flow. We actually need enough calm and relaxation and presence for that creativity to even find us. Sitting in silence or meditation is an excellent practice to nourish the nervous system, bring it back into regulation, and have those ideas and have somewhere for them to hit us. That imaginatory place is so beautiful. Eating 3 meals each day in a quiet and calm environment, very important. Mealtime should be relaxing. It should be with people that you love, in an environment that you're engaged in, not overly ideal to be walking, driving, arguing with loved ones, sitting in a brightly lit inside environment that's not inspiring at all. If we wanted the ideal, it would be something like at least having nature or a window to gaze through, being very quiet and relaxed so that you can have a natural presence with your food and an appreciation. I think about the times where I've eaten in dense cities, in really busy places where people are yelling at each other and there's fluoro lights, and I'm in the corner thinking, oh my God, I'm so stressed. Or if you're in traffic and you're trying to eat on the way to work, your system isn't actually digesting well because it has to put all this blood to the brain and all this blood to the intensity and the stress of the experience. So it can't actually do that job very well. So like we've talked about, incorporating adequate vegetable, protein, and fat content into every meal, cooking and dining with those you love, and having boundaries around what behavior is welcome at the table. So no arguments, no topics of conversation that are too heated. Let's not talk about politics or whatever. This is probably mainly for kids as well. This is a time where we all sit down and we're grateful. It's not a time to be running around. We really need to sit down and be in a sense of gratitude for our meal. When you're in a frequency of gratitude when you're eating, that frequency of gratitude is actually calming the nervous system and bringing circulation to the right parts. And if we're thinking about our food and appreciating it, like I said before, if there's a story around the food, I grew these carrots, we caught this fish, maybe my friend gifted us this meat, or those chickens from my loved one's garden made these eggs. We are engaging with our food and we're in a natural, grateful state, which is really, really important. It means we're super connected to our food, and that nutrients, the nutrient density in the food actually just aligns with a frequency match in our bodies. I've noticed too that when the food is of high quality, I'm more creative in the way that I cook it. I'm more respectful in the way that I cook it. If it's low chi fruit and veg from somewhere highly processed, I find I don't care so much about the preparation. I think, oh, you know, whatever. So it's interesting that when we're engaged with it, we can be more creative in the way that we use it. So as I've just talked about, being grateful for each meal, allowing time for digestion. So probably need about 15 minutes after your meal to digest. It's really important that you're sitting down while you're eating and stay seated while you're digesting. Great time to connect with your loved ones, great time to just have a moment to integrate, to reflect, to sit in silence with yourself or with those that you're with. Using herbal medicine tonics to provide extra nourishment and support through times of stress. Again, beautiful theory around We don't want you to never have stress. We want you to support your system through necessary stress. Sometimes necessary stress is having children, or being in a job that you love, or going through adversity in your life. Really giving your body what it needs to go through that and supporting it is super important. So protecting yourself from oversitting or overstanding by taking breaks to either move your body or take rest accordingly. Oversitting does block your chi. It makes it stagnant and sluggish. It can be detrimental to the nervous system, to the muscles, to the joints, to the bones. So making sure that you're getting up often, moving your body, stretching, whatever it needs to be. So again, supporting your system and your lifestyle in the way that you need to. But if you have a job that has you overstanding, you might want to take breaks to lie down, to actively shut the nervous system down, to close your eyes, lie down, sit down, spend a moment in reflection, just to give your body a break in that way. Creating space in your schedule for deep thought, reflection, journaling, and processing difficult emotions. Yeah. Keeping the space so that you can sink into yourself, ask your body what it needs, tune into your creative levels, tune into your nourishment, tune into your life and your lifestyle. And am I taking a multidimensional process to this, or am I trying to solve everything in the same way? And are they the same problems, in fact, which would tell us we're in a pattern and in a yo-yoing of egoic stress. Okay, the most ideal meal times each day are 7 to 9 a.m., breakfast like a king. So this is your biggest meal of the day. This is the time when the digestive fire is at its peak. This is where you can put the most nutrients in. It's generally a time that you're at home. It's generally a high energy time where you hopefully have the capacity to put together a beautiful meal. If not, heaps of organization and structure around how you're going to make it easier. But this is the peak time for breakfast. So allowing that into your daily flow and making it the biggest meal. And if it can't be the biggest meal, retraining your appetite around making it bigger each day. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., lunch like a queen. Now, this is the highest energy time of the day because the sun is highest in the sky. It's the warmest time. It's where the sun's energy peaks. It's where we have all the yang energy. And it's actually, for us in Chinese medicine, where the heart looks for connection. So think about all those beautiful European countries and all the places in the world where they have long, leisurely lunch breaks and they all eat together. And it's a time of beautiful community bonding. And then they often have siesta. But this will be the second largest meal of the day. And look for connection during this time. It might be eating with a few loved ones. It might be reaching out to people during this time. It might be being out and about, eating in the sun, eating in the garden, whatever it is, but making that, an intentional lunch. 5 to 7 p.m. is great for dinner. And we say dinner like a peasant. It's a time when we're winding down, we're consolidating the day's experiences. We might not have as much capacity to put together a large meal, and where metabolism really needs to be slowing down there. So a small, light dinner is ideal. Bowl of soup, something easy to prepare, some leftovers, not making it a huge meal and not making it a huge meal late at night. It'll put too much pressure in your digestive system as you go to bed. So we want it light so that your body has already digested everything by the time you fall asleep. So hope that helps too. So a lot of people say, well, if I don't eat all the gluten and I don't have all the caffeine and the MSG and all those things, then what am I actually going to cook? Great question. So I've got some ideas here with some pictures, just so we know it is fairly easy. Sometimes you just have to swap some things in and out, or just make it accessible and convenient for your lifestyle. Soups and stews are great. Put everything in there that your body needs. Put all your superfoods, put your bone broth in there, put all your veggies, put your protein source. You can add some supplement powders, all sorts of things you can add into your soup. Great for the whole family, great for the animals as well. Easy to heat up, easy to eat during the day, to take to work, all those sorts of things. So soups and stews are great. Wild caught seafood and vegetables down the bottom. If you can get those good sources of protein, whole plate of vegetables, eat the rainbow, something that you love, cooked, raw, whatever you got going on, fermented, excellent. Quinoa bowl with a selection of vegetables and an egg. So quinoa is a seed. It's high in nutrients, high in protein, not refined, easy to cook, highly nutritious, very tasty. It can be a nice substitute for white rice or pasta or whatever you're used to. Again, selection of vegetables cooked in the way that you like. Pop an egg on top or your favorite protein source, and you've got a wonderful meal. Homemade curries are great. Get some protein in there. Just put it at the spice level that your body likes, but it's warming, it's nutritious, particularly if it's a homemade curry paste or one that's fairly natural. If there's coconut milk in there, again, that's a great source of protein and nutrients. Make a big pot, serve it up, serve it out, you know. Regular consumption of organic herbal teas is just wonderful for the body. Have a research, see which one really suits you. Maybe there's a symptom you're trying to remedy or heal. Herbal teas are a great way to keep in touch with that. And if not, contact a naturopath and they actually make you up a tea just for you based on the things that you're trying to heal and what might support your system through times of stress or times of ease, whatever's going on for you. If you do have a sweet tooth, make some homemade sugar-free granola bars or nut and seed bars, or, you know, whatever you got going on. Stick some goji berries in there, some superfoods. I sneak all sorts of things into my healthy snacks. I can put collagen powder in there. I can put powdered herbs in there. I can put extra protein, nuts and seeds, a bit of cacao in there. You know, if I'm wanting that sweetness and I'm cold towards chocolate, then I'll put it in there as the best source that I can get. Some dates can go in there, some dried fruits. Super, super nutritious and really, really yummy. So I hope you have enjoyed this webinar. Please reach out to us if you want to join us for more webinars. If you've really loved this webinar, we do all of these sorts of things really regularly in our Patreon group. We meet for live streams every month. We do webinars. We talk about multidimensional health. We offer readings. We have a forum. It's really all in there, but I really hope you enjoyed this unique take on nutrition and how it can sustain your creativity. And I hope that you will be more well and more happy and more creative because of it. So thank you so much. And we will see you next time for the next juicy webinar. Much love. Bye.